every day, Lamals. Nice. What type of vegetables? What do you think? Post-MOASS reasonable price targets for GameStop could be. Homer's Ghost, post-MOASS. So you're thinking post-MOASS, MOASS being the squeeze, the mother of all short squeezes. And you're thinking then after that, what would be a fair price? Well, I mean, it's very difficult. It would take a while to work its way out, right? You know, that like the idea that this is the thing, like MOASS isn't going to be some... You know when you know back in the 90s, right? You know back in the 90s. I've talked about this before. Made this analogy before. So there was this thing called fluming, where people go on flumes. Even in the 80s, it was starting to pick up popularity. And large swimming pools, even the Commonwealth swimming pool here in Edinburgh and other places, many of them across the world, not water parks, normal swimming pools, installed flumes. And people went on fluming holidays, right? They flumed it up for nearly a whole decade. They were fluming it until they couldn't get any more flumes. They was like, yo bro, I heard you like flumes. And there was flumes inside flumes inside flumes. And it got carried away in that. People thought that they were good. People thought they were good. They were good. They were enjoyable. They were fun. They were the sort of thing you do over and over again. Of course, on that one trip to the swimming pool, sure, but subsequently, no, you were bored. They weren't that interesting. They certainly weren't worth going on holiday for. And so the huge international fluming community collapsed. And this is the thing, right? People think like, well, if you're going to enjoy it, right, then they'll pay for it. And if they're going to enjoy it and it only lasts a second, that doesn't matter. They'll still pay for it. And if it only lasts a second, sure, we can fucking fit more people on the thing. And it's like, well, you ruin a good thing like that, don't you? And instead, let's let it take its time. Let it mature like a nice vintage. We've been through it for so long, on this side of the thing, right? We've been through it for so long that we could take a slow ride to the top side and then a slow collapse afterwards and then a long period to work yourself out afterwards. So what do we think, right? And then monthly time frame, GME. This is it in its entirety. You've already had that move. Centre line within it all. Right. People might think to you, this was MOASS, right? This was the squeeze. This was it all from 279 up to 5. What is it here? The high wick 483 is the number, but anyway, whatever. Let's pretend we don't know. It's it. And so people would tell you after that, right? And they're in the minute, right? They work for Motley Fool and they write about the fair price that things will return to after this crazy. Oh, no, you're not looking at charts, so you can't see any of it. Here's the chart, right? They'll be like, this is what they think, right? And they write for Motley Fool and they say the squeeze has happened and they're trying to move on because like that's where their money comes from the next thing, right? Like, and you know, you'll have noticed the popular YouTube channels, big ones too in particular, they change all the time the things they're talking about in order to retain their audience because like they're looking to make money, right? Because that's their goal, to make as much money as they can. And so they'll always be like, well, where's the money? And they chase the money. And yet they know, like, well, they don't know, right? Because they don't have a fucking clue. But they've seen that GME or AMC does these crazy things. And that's what they got, like, especially with the people who cover these two particular tickers, the big channels. Like, they've seen how it's changed their lives, right? Financially. And they don't want it, right? Oh my God, I don't want it, right? Oh, I couldn't miss out on that happening again. That like persists them in still being interested and still being connected, but they don't focus on it. They don't put their reputation on it. They're afraid to stake their credibility on it. They themselves aren't authentic. And that's just it. It's not me like making a decision, right? That's quite a long established way of judging things and like, fuck it. So, and that's what I say. And fuck it, and fuck them, and fuck that shite. And so What they was right. The people who work for Motley Fool and they're on the internet too, and they'd be like, "Oh, this thing come back for like $30, and that's a free visit," and they're not actually. They're like, so this was a fair, and like, so it's like they're basing their information. That's so very often what people do, and they say like, "What's a fair value? What's a fair value?" They're saying it's like a personal question. So what's a fair value to you will be different from somebody else because you didn't go to a very, very strict school. That's the same school absolutely everybody else went to, where you were given a curriculum and you learned it off and you understood that, well, this is what equals $5 and this is what's worth $30 as a stock and this is worth what's 75. And like, that's not a prescription that everybody can follow. It's not something that exists. Your interpretation of the fundamentals are that. They're your interpretation. And so anybody else's interpretation of the fundamentals will be theirs. And then to use the fundamentals as some way of judging the value of the thing is wrong. So like, I know what you mean. I know where you're coming from. I know the question. But the way you phrase it, it prompts the answer to be like, what's like the value to, what's the, what, you know, and what, and like after MOASS, and like, like the suggestion being that price action is entirely related to MOASS, when you yourself know that that can't be exclusively true, because we've been in a downtrend since November and a greater downtrend since July, and none of that's got to do anything with the fucking supply and demand. Like, it's got fucking nothing to do with it on terms of what's actually out there in concrete and could be carved in a stone, and I'd carry it down from fucking Mount Gamma Ramp and read it to all of yous. There's nothing with that yet. It's all like fucking around with the supply and demand, using various instruments in order to manage ridiculous short positions, because they still believe that this, right, that's over, right? They still believe the Motley Fool argument in and around here where my fucking purple floppy dildo is. That's what they still believe. And the longer it goes on, the more incredulous or absurd that seems. But they don't give a fuck about time. They believe what they believe, and they won't change their mind until it's changed for them, because they are good traders. They're just on the wrong side of this trade. Right now, I say they're good traders in that because they've got those qualities that are also inherent in a good trader, but they aren't actually. They're fucking assholes who are fucking up for everybody else. So, what do I think GameStop coming back to post MOASS to be a reasonable entry? Right, this is a question again I don't consider, because I don't actually anticipate selling my GME shares when it goes fucking crazy, right? I don't. Potentially, I'll look at other instruments and trying to hedge, but I don't anticipate selling my shares here, now, in the future, ever, literally ever. I don't anticipate selling those shares, right? I don't, right? I think that to have them, to hold them, and to own them until the day I die will be an achievement that's worth something more than anything I'd get even off MOASS. And I'm here providing this value every single day from now until the moment it happens to ensure and hope that it fucking anything I can do contributes to it. But at the same time, being honest and helpful to everyone and saying, yo, what does it matter afterwards, right? The world will have changed. Your life will have changed. You'll be able to sell 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 shares at high prices that'll make a significant difference to the trajectory of your destiny. And that's a massive achievement. And that if you can change the trend, that you've been born disadvantaged, you've been given a hard time, and like, don't take it the wrong way, because most people have, or you've found yourself struggling and not been able to make or achieve those goals that you think would be rightfully fair for anyone to have, right? You've never got near, like, all those things, right? If you are one of those people who truly are and have been dealt an unfair hand and you hold GME, it will get, not financial advice, to a price that you'll be able to sell some of what you own, and it will make a difference to your life, a significant difference, right? No matter your class or your social status or where you come from, that'll happen, I think. And when it does, and I'm looking at that chart saying it hasn't happened yet, right? And when it does, afterwards, are you going to care about where it comes back? Are you going to really... This is where I think that it's absurd to talk about us. We can let Ryan Cohen do it. You can even like his tweets. But for us to talk about like this consultancy group are paid too much or these people's fees are too high and that's what we're committing ourselves to. Like, no, that's not. We've got a real objective and we haven't achieved it. We won't be satisfied by talking about it. We won't be satisfied by trying. We won't be satisfied by a long period of time trying. We'll be satisfied exclusively by the thing that we're trying to achieve and nothing else. Everything else is a desert of satisfaction, is a fucking war of attrition against you and everything you want, and we're never going to give up, because if we do, it's not just this, it's not just what you hope for you don't get, it's everything you could have had 12 years ago, 13 years ago, 14 years ago now, fucking 14 years ago now, it's everything you could have and should have had rightfully back if the world was turned against you before you were even born, right? No joke. And I'm not speaking here in a hype way. It really was. Before you were even born, everything that you could have used effectively for a fair fight was taken from you on purpose because you knew this moment would come, right? So bear that in mind. They knew this moment would come, and those disadvantages you face now are on purpose because they knew this moment would come and they needed it. They needed to make sure that you didn't believe in yourself, that you didn't believe that it was possible, that you thought that it was all a story. They needed you to believe that. And the only way was to make you think it was a fairy tale. And the only way to do that is to make you born without it and have to fight for something you've never had, so that you give up with a 786 retracement, with a golden pocket retracement. That's what they're relying on. That's what they're relying on. It's not the charts. It's not their maths. They know they're fucked. What they're relying on is you accepting something that's good enough because it's better than what you've ever had before. And I'll tell you this, right? You'll never get a chance like this again. There's nothing good enough other than their fucking destruction. Right? No millions, no billions. Right? What do your third generation you think of your 2 million quid? Fuck all, when they're destroyed and their world's destroyed. And where else do you have a chance to doing it? Right? Where else? Nowhere else. Nowhere else. No. $1. Tradespotting, I have to praise you like I should. With $1,